Hey everyone, it's Kai from WCC. Today we're looking at Great Nature, another boosted clan from Mysterious Fortune, and they used to be one of the best decks in the format. They had very, very consistent plays, and before what they lacked was just somewhat some power. They had to run a few fronts, they had to run Rainbow, otherwise they would be hitting very weak. And some of their gotcha effects weren't really consistent, but otherwise they had a nice thing like Tank Mouse that would always gain them cards and really push their game quite a bit. And they did pretty well last year at Worlds. This year, Worlds is coming up again. This is the last set to be released before Worlds, so we'll see whether this is a really strong contender for Standard. And so we'll just go through the deck first. I'll go through what I've put in and talk about the new cards, and then how it currently fares in the current meta. So first off, we have the big mommy, I guess, and that's Isabella. So what it does is, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it changes your mill effects to get both effects at the same time. So you perform all the gotcha effects with all the abilities, no matter what you mill. And then when placed, you can Soul Blast 1 and put the top card of your deck into the drop zone and perform one of the following effects, which is on a normal unit, you'll get 15k. And then on a trigger unit, you will get to put the card that you milled back into your hand. So overall, it's a pretty decent card. It confirms your gotcha effects, which is the main thing. But the other thing that's nice is that its second effect is a Vanguard and Rearguard circle effect. So when you play this on the Vanguard, you can then play another one on the Rearguard and get its full effect off as well. One thing you will notice is that it uses only Soul Blast, so you cannot damage deny Great Nature as much. But you will find that in this deck, there is a lot of soul cost units. So your limiting factor is the soul. And you need to be careful on what effects you use and what effects you will pass on. That's one of the big things that you have to learn when playing this deck. Otherwise, overall, Isabel, decent card. Not a very good first ride, because you don't get any of its effects. You either get a 15k plus or a draw, which is kind of mess. So that's why Leopold is still around. We're still running 4 at Leopold. And just, yeah, because if you ride it first, you have the opportunity to gain just 2 cards for free. Later on, it's still decent. Getting crits and all that is decent. When you miss hit, sometimes when you want to get crits, you get the full field. Sometimes you want the full field, you get the crits. That kind of is mitigated now because you have a lot more options with a lot more cards, and you have things like Isabel that can help make it up later on, so it's not as impactful as it was before. So overall, this grade 3 engine is pretty nice. You got another card now, though. It is Hamske, well, Hamdon, Hamske's rival Hamdon. This card is kind of a filler. What it does is, when your other unit is placed on an additional Rearguard circle, you can just counterblast 1, put a card from your hand into the soul, and then this and that unit gains 10k until the end of turn. If you have 2 or more additional Rearguard circles, draw a card. So the main thing about this card is that you can put a card into soul, which is good because you run out of soul very quickly with this deck. So this kind of helps that out. This is kind of a flex slot. You can put your kind of more finisher grade 3s into this slot, or just run anything else that you'd like. We just put this Hamdon just because it adds to soul and it just gives some extra power as well. So that's all good. Moving on, we're moving on to grade 2. Binoculars Tiger, same as before, but now it is buffed because of Isabel. This card is actually really good with Isabel in the Vanguard circle. Getting both effects is pretty insane. Essentially it's a +1 or +2 but you're minusing your opponent, so it's a +1 and then a -1 for your opponent. But getting that 3 5Ks off as well will definitely make your columns hit a bit tougher. And with the majority of the meta being accel, you're going to be hitting those 27s, 32s, which will just get more cards out of your opponent. But just getting that extra draw as well is just really nice too with Isabella. And onto the other grade 2, the new one is another Hamske's pal. This one, it is Hamhiko. Now, this one, when you come into play, Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 card among them into your hand, and 1 of them into the drop zone. So, essentially, it's pretty nice to filter, well, get a better hand, develop your hand a bit better. It has a secondary effect. When your card is put from the deck into the drop zone, you may have this unit gain 5k into end of turn. So you're gonna, with a lot of the new Great Nature cards, you're gonna see a lot of these kind of effects where they have a main effect, which is okay, and they have a secondary effect, which is the mill and then gain power. That secondary effect is very, very decent. That's pretty much the main effect that you'll look at for a lot of these cards. A lot of the cards, the top effect will be just whatever. The second effect, gaining power, means you're going to hit those nice numbers. It means you don't need to really invest in something like fronts if you're really afraid of power. You can just run crits, and that's what we're doing with this deck. We're just going full crits because our power lines have already been determined pretty well by these extra new effects that these cards have got. First effect, pretty self-explanatory, pretty nice for Hamiko. Second effect, nice, extra nice sauce. And then the last 2 slots for our grade 2 is our old Barcode Zebra and Geograph Giant. Now these are kind of flexible in that you can run like 4 Barcode Zebra, 1 Geograph Giant, or maybe run less of each if you don't really want the power. They're basically just there for powers to gain more beat sticks. Geograph Giant can kind of stick around a bit more because it's just 17k all the time on your rearguard circles. While Barcode Zebra, you're doing a lot more mills. You have the opportunity to do more mills, so that power line will get big pretty quickly. So, but both of them are just there just to fill in the beat stick slots, and you can replace them if you don't want as many beat sticks or not, and put something else. But we put in around 5, which we think is okay. Onto the grade 1s, we have the Scale Toucan. This is one of the new cards. When you come into play, Soul Blast 1 and return one of your other rear guards to hand. And then the second effect is one of those, when you mill from the deck into the drop zone, you'll get 5k. So hits a nice 13k number when you mill. The first effect, I rarely find that effective. Maybe if you played some extra cards in the beginning to beat down with, you can call it back, like you called some Leopolds if you wanted to beat down with that, and then some Isabellas. Later on, you want to ride a grade 3 for the next turn, you play a Toucan and put it back into your hand. I guess that's kind of like the niche usage. Otherwise, I haven't really found that many situations where I'd want to use the first effect. It requires a Soul Blast, which is really important. Keeping Soul is important. So that's one of the reasons why you wouldn't. Main effect here is that secondary, when you mill, get a 5k effect. Onto the next new grade 3 we have Cecil. This one's kind of interesting, alright? It's when placed, you can Soul Blast 1, put the top card of your deck into your drop zone, and then you perform on the effects, which is normal unit, Soul Charge 1, and gain 5k until end of turn. And then the trigger unit is draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards from your hand. So this card, you have to be careful when to use it. We only run 3, we actually don't run 4. The good times when to use this is when you ride this as Vanguard. So then you can have the opportunity to gain 5k, and it makes it pretty annoying to guard for your opponent. Otherwise, the other effect, when you draw 2 cards in the beginning, it lets you develop your hand a bit better, kind of sculpt it to what you would want it to be. But later on, when you want to use it outside of Isabella turns, the value becomes very low. You really want to get the first effect more just so you can get a free 5k. Later on, you generally don't have situations where you really want the draw 2. And if you do, if you miss that draw 2, that is super impactful. So for a cost of 1 soul, using it outside of Isabella is a pretty big risk. So this is one of those cards where you kind of want to use it early, use it specifically when you have Isabella available, but then if you need to play it from hand, you probably don't want to just waste the soul, because if you wanted the power and you Soul Blast and got the draw 2, then you're kind of like, I've used an extra soul, and now my later Isabella turns, when I play Isabellas from hand, they're going to be impacted. So overall, be careful how you use this card. We're only running 3 because there's actually a more specific situations where we would use Cecile. And our last, not our last slot, but kind of our extra flex slot is this Monoculous Tiger. Old card, does what it does. It's kind of less relevant in Standard. We're just using it so on our final turns, we have just kind of an extra pressure card. You can replace it with a Cecile, but we never really found we want to use that many Ceciles in a game, so we dropped that down to 3 and just added this card in. Otherwise, yeah, this is just kind of your flex slot. And our last slot is taken by Tank Mouse. Tank Mouse is still pretty good. It gets you cards. enough said, right? Enough said. Otherwise, on our trigger lineup is just 8 crits, 4 draws, and 4 heals. Before, like I said before, old Great Nature, you had the opportunity to run fronts because then it made your front lines hit bigger. Nowadays, your front line hits pretty big already, so you don't really need those fronts. Like, one of your grade 2s and grade 1s of the mill, they're already hitting 17k. You mill a card, they hit 27. I think that's pretty good enough, especially when you're playing in an accel format. So, how does this fare in the current format? So, accel is so popular. Everyone loves accel. There's really strong accel decks right now, and it feels like with Great Nature, this clan is too fair. All right, hitting 27 across all your columns, with some columns like with a barcode zebra hitting even bigger, sound pretty cool. Back maybe in the mid-year when everything didn't hit as big. But again, when you look at things now, Pale Moon kind of hits these numbers without needing to really do much at all. They counterblast 2 and discard it hard. Hooray, everything hits 22, 33. Then they trigger some fronts and yeah, that's it. You have crits. The advantage that you have is you have crits, so you can just randomly crit people out. But for you to hit 27, you need to call cards from your hand and then mill a card, mill some cards, etc. So that's kind of pretty weird. When you look at other accel clans, they don't really need to commit as much as you, and they get a lot more benefits. Again, think of Murakumo. They call some stuff, they get 1 card for free from Hyuga, and then they get a board wipe, which you don't get. You get a Binoculars Tiger though, so that's actually okay. But they get pretty much a kind of free board wipe, and then everything hits at least 27. Sometimes hits even higher because basically what they have on the field. So hitting big nowadays is just not enough. So that's why I'm saying Great Nature is kind of a bit too fair. Even like Gold Paladins, they might not hit as big as you, but they get way more multi-attacks. And consistency-wise, Great Nature has kind of always been has this consistent engine with tank mouths, but then again, it has this inconsistent bit with things not hitting as you want. Isabel kind of fixes that inconsistency problem, but at the same time, everyone else didn't have this inconsistency problem before. So when they get support now, they're just buffing everything else that they wanted. Just an addendum, can this deck beat Murakumo? Can this deck beat Pilmo? Yeah, it can, definitely. In Standard, anything can beat anything as long as you've pretty much gotten recent support, because recent support is just really amazing. But what this deck can do is that it can make really easy columns to hit 27 on multiple lanes if after a board wipe, because you do generate a decent amount of cards, and things like having Saving Leopold in your hand after a board wipe means you have a good chance to just call 4 cards for free. If just so you know, with maths, they board wipe you, they're sending all those non-triggers back into your deck, unless you play triggers, so in that case, then bad luck. But they put all those normal units back into your deck. You have a high chance to mill them, so you have a bigger chance to just build your board. Even if you don't have a Leopold, you have things like Isabella, it's easy, just play them down, call them, 27, draw a card, play another one, or just hard call from your hand. It should be enough to just at least make a field that can contest the board again and force a lot of cards out of their hand. Another thing that you do have a slight advantage over is that your early game is better. If you want to be aggressive early on, you can not feel bad and just play down a bunch of cards, and they will still hit decent power lines and just push pressure on the Murakumo player early that they have to start discarding cards. Same with Pale Moon, they have to start discarding cards to guard, and then their later turns will be a bit harder to play. So make sure to play aggressive. That is the only way that decks can beat other decks if they're kind of not as strong. You just need a bit more luck, and luckily enough with Great Nature, your deck is all about luck, except now you have less luck elements. Your luck elements are more fixed up by Isabella. But yeah, play aggressive, and try and win early and snowball late. Overall, Great Nature, it's fair. It's a fair deck. If you play it, okay, if you play Great Nature, no one will complain. No one will complain. If you play Murakumo, people will complain. They'll be like, you're playing the best deck. This is a joke. Oh, hey, yeah. No. The good thing about Great Nature is you don't have $50 Miyamarus that you need to buy. You just have $50 Isabellas that you need to buy. and you don't need to buy them all the time. So I guess it's a plus. It's a bit more budget than other clans out there at the moment, so it can perform decently while on a budget. Okay, so Great Nature, fair deck. People will not complain if you play it, and you don't have to buy $50 Myanmars. See you guys in the next video. Bye.